Society podcast. It's been a long time now since the last interview we did, so we just said we'd check in with a bit of an update on the current standings for the presidential elections. So, no messing around, we'll get straight into it, Marv. We'll start with Mairead McGuinness. So, Mairead McGuinness obviously now is announced as the candidate to represent Fine Gael, and she is the front runner in everyone's eyes for presidency. That was to be expected, I suppose.
Yeah, it was. Again, we were talking about this a while ago, and I think we both had said that Mairead McGuinness was the kind of presumptive nominee for Fine Gael. Yeah, and I think Fine Gael had kind of a lot of kind of strong candidates anyway they could have gone for. I know there was talk of Sean Kelly, MEP for Ireland South, who was interested. But in the end, Simon Harris came out there, I think 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, and basically confirmed that she will be officially nominated. That procedure hasn't formally happened, but I think the selection convention will be in September. But it's basically the leader of the party has said that she will be our candidate, and no one else is challenging. But yeah, I mean, yeah, very much at the moment, I would say the front runner has the backing of a major party. Former MEP for a massive geographic constituency. Think of the amount of votes there, and in order to, win a seat there, you're going to want to pull in, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of votes, maybe even hundreds of thousands of votes, and served at a high level in the European Union. So, yeah, definitely a big name for them to put forward.
And yeah, I think that they kind of had to put her forward because obviously with the news of Catherine Connolly, she kind of was the first to announce her candidacy. And personally, I felt that I think they were pushing the boat out till September, but the fact that they saw the publicity Catherine Connolly was getting with her nomination, they didn't want that kind of dirt being built up on her, the way if your campaign's longer, inevitably you're going to have more time for people to dig up stuff on you or whatever you may have. And I know as an elected representative, there's no better way of being vetted by the people because you're elected by the people. But you can even see in the news recently enough, there was something to do with her expenses. I didn't really read into it too much, but there was did you have a look at that about her expenses were kind of...
Yeah, briefly, yeah. It's again, I think more will kind of come out as the like I said, the campaign hasn't even officially started. Like the rate of the election hasn't even been moved by the minister. Probably not till the end of August, I would imagine, going on recent trends. So the campaign hasn't even formally began. But I say when we come around to it, it'll be said in more detail. But yeah, just kind of, doing with expenses in our time in Europe. Again, to be honest, I didn't see a lot of it myself. No smoking guns there. There was a bit like that in the last election with Michael D. Higgins, who we met recently, didn't we, Harry? We had a very nice day. Shout out to President Higgins for having us in his house for a lovely garden party about a month ago. It was great guy. Yeah, shout out to big up President Higgins. But anyway, but in 2018, there was similar stuff brought up about his use of expenses, or that he used the government jet to fly to Belfast instead of the car, all that kind of stuff. And it didn't really, it wasn't a kind of a major issue. So yeah, I don't know whether that's going to excite a lot of voters, being perfectly frank. But I know with Mairead McGuinness, there'll be controversy, say, around I know when she was an MEP that all the Fine Gael MEPs voted to remove supports for, say, migrants coming across the Mediterranean Sea a couple of years ago when she was an MEP. That was a controversial vote, so I would imagine something like that might be brought up against her during the campaign. That might have a bit more weight. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well that the first to actually announce her candidacy was Catherine Connolly. So if you haven't seen already, Catherine Connolly, she's an independent TD. She announced her candidacy. She was formerly Labour, and I know in recent times she said Labour have kind of lost her soul, but Labour have come out and said that they would back Catherine Connolly in her bid for the presidency, which I find quite surprising considering that Fergus Finlay is, or may have been the Labour candidate, you know, that they might have nominated. So does that mean that we don't see a Fergus Finlay on the ballot paper, or does it mean that we might get the whole of the left to kind of back Catherine Connolly, or is she the one that we're going to see front and centre?
Yeah, I think we can take it that she's like the left candidate. So I think that's kind of what they learned from the previous general election, and we've seen it post-election. Particularly, there was the controversy around the Dáil speaking rights for the independent TDs who were negotiating the programme for government and supported it. You know, we've talked about it previously, the kind of the Michael Healy-Rae, Michael Lowry in particular group. And we've seen a lot of great unity involving the opposition left parties on that. So that's what I was thinking at the time. I think the presidential election is a good opportunity for those parties to start working together and seeing if they can get anyone, a credible candidate together to get over the line, thinking down the road for a general election if they kind of want to run more as a with a voting pact, to kind of like a government in waiting, for want of a better term. So you have the Soc Dems are backing her people before profit, and all like the left wing TDs, like the I know the Charlie Ward from 100% Redress in Donegal is backing her. Seamus Healy down in Tip, Brian Stanley, former Sinn Féin TD, and Eileen Flynn in the Shannon have all come out and have said they will back her. I know when we were going over the constituencies for the general election, I think we both said that Catherine Connolly would be presidential. She's a lot in common with Higgins, from the same constituency out in Galway West. She's a Gaeilgeoir, very left wing, very, very vocal on international affairs. Has been very vocal on the genocide in Palestine. However, that's where any controversy is starting around her. Some people have said that she was too supportive of the Assad regime in Syria, or say the Iranian regime. So that might be where people might have criticisms for her. I say she'll be the Michael D continuity candidate, I would suggest. And I know that's one criticism of Higgins. I've seen particularly more to the centre and to the centre right of President Higgins. He's been too vocal because the president conventionally doesn't get involved in kind of politics and international issues, but President Higgins has been a very outspoken on international affairs, be it Cuba or Palestine. So you might have people saying, well, if you didn't like that style of presidency, don't vote for Catherine Connolly. But yeah, I think, and we can probably move on then, because the major party from the opposition that hasn't supported Connolly, and I suspect won't, is Sinn Féin. So Sinn Féin, yeah, let's talk about what their plans are. Yeah,
so I know if a few of you are listeners of the podcast a couple of months, you'll know that months ago I was tipping Mary Lou, or was Mary Lou or Gerry Adams. I knew that they would put a big candidate forward, because for the past two elections they've had such a voter base in a general election, and I know that the presidential race, especially like a brand new one, you have just a blank slate, so it's more of a popularity contest. You know, you're just basically asking the people, who do you want to represent you, like plain and simple. And a lot of the time, let's say if you have a Catherine Connolly, you have a Mairead McGuinness. I know Mairead McGuinness's constituency spans how many counties? 14 or something, I don't know.
Yeah, something mad like
that. But how many people actually know her? Especially like compared to Mary Lou McDonald. Like Mary Lou McDonald is one of the most popular politicians in our modern era, just purely down to the fact that, you know, she's out on social media all the time. She's been the leader, the biggest opposition our state has seen in a long, long time. And I really do think that if Mary Lou McDonald puts her name forward for the presidency, she will become the front-running candidate. I know at the moment she refuses to rule out any sort of presidential bid. This is what she was saying about 2 weeks ago, but I would kind of put that more towards, you know, she didn't want to be the first candidate, because once you're the first candidate, you're there to be got at. You know, the media are only going to go for you, you know, like we're seeing with Mairead McGuinness. You know, there's already stuff coming up about her. People are just going to be kind of going at her there. And I think it was very tactical because you're kind of giving the people, you're getting a free survey off the people. You get to see, well, oh, Mary Lou, yeah, she'd make a great president, or I don't think she'd be my president, this, that, the other. So you're getting a free shot at it, you know. But I do personally believe if she does go for it, I think there's nothing stopping her getting it, you know. And it's just going to be one of them things. We're just going to have to wait and see. Probably September time, I think they'll make a decision on it.
Yeah, as again, if we go over the process, so the formal kind of nomination period will start with the Minister for Housing and Local Government moving the writ at the end of August, and then there'll be a month to get the nominations. So either 20 Oireachtas members or 4 city or county councils, and that'll go on until the end of September. So sometime at the end of September there will be the cut off, and that's when the formal campaign of all of the confirmed candidates will start until the end of October. So yeah, I think you're right. I think she's going to wait a little while, but it is funny, isn't it, that a couple of months ago we were talking about this. It was you who put the idea in my head, and I thought, how did I not think of Mary Lou? And she had previously ruled out Gerry Adams. Gerry Adams has said nothing, but Mary Lou herself ruled Gerry Adams out. She said, quote, "I don't think Gerry will be interested in that kind of thing." I doubt that, but anyway, I think Gerry Adams kind of knows he would serve the cause better, kind of moving on. But she had ruled herself out as well. But I think it's kind of obvious that Sinn Féin needs something new. They need a new leader. Frankly, I think they've kind of dropped the ball in 2 consecutive general elections, not going into government. Very disappointing for the party, and they need a change. But as we said, she's very, very popular with young people, very popular with people who wouldn't traditionally come from a Republican constituency at all, and she's just very charismatic, very personable, and now maybe this is obvious because the Wolf Tones are a Republican band, but I was at the Wolf Tones in Limerick there a few days ago, and she was up on the screen at the start singing "Let the People Sing," and everyone was, "Oh, Mary Lou," because there was rumours on Twitter that people were booing Mary Lou, but I was there, I had 2 eyes and 2 ears, and I can attest that no, she was received very well. So yeah, she's changed her stance now. She says she's not ruling anything out, which I think means I'm going to go for it, because I think they were also looking at the likes of Jared Burns, the president of the GAA. He's completely ruled himself out, and I know he's I wouldn't be a big GAA man now, but I know he wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea in the association, and I think he has more to do in the GAA. He has more ideas he wants to implement. So I look, it has to be they can't have anyone from the north, because not many of them would pull a vote down here. So it has to be Mary Lou. 100% has to be Mary Lou. I agree. I think if Mary Lou's on the ballot, she could win. But then it's like, what happens to Catherine Connolly? Because is her chances to win the Áras, if Mary Lou goes for it, is she gone then? Is she a busted flush? What do we think?
Well, I thought this as well, and I actually was talking to Francis about it, and Francis pointed out to me, he said, transfers play a big role in a presidential election. So we saw that with Brian Lenihan and Mary Robinson many, many years ago. And as well as that, to strengthen the case for Mary Lou McDonald, we have a thing about Marys. We had Mary McAleese, we had Mary Robinson, and this could be Mary Lou's go. But a nice kind of stepping stone into the next candidate I want to talk about is Mary Hanafin, because Fianna Fáil have not announced a candidate. But this is the thing. As we've said for a long time, there's a trend that these parties want to put forward female candidates, and it's been a long time since Fianna Fáil have put forward a candidate. I think, who was the last
1997 candidate they put forward?
Mary McAleese, yeah, because I know Sean Gallagher got a bit of flack for his Fianna Fáil kind of whatever. But we'll move on from that. We're talking about Mary Hanafin. So she's kind of come out and said that she'd like the nomination for the presidency, and she's been the only murmur in the Fianna Fáil camp. There hasn't been anything else really, and I know we've talked about in our general election kind of predictions, we see that there's a bit of a lack of talent in the Fianna Fáil, especially the female candidates, that they just can't seem to attract these female candidates for these elections. And I think it's going to be no different here. And they've actually come out today and said that they're not going to make their decision till September. So could it be a thing that we see like a Mary Hanafin running / Bertie Ahern, or do you think that they might back the likes of Mairead McGuinness?
Well, again, we obviously we had Bertie Ahern on podcast last time, and we were very grateful to him for giving us his time to talk about it. He was typically very tight-lipped about it. Neither of us were expecting him to announce a candidacy on this platform anyway, but he still hasn't said anything and not officially ruling anything out. But I think, you know, we've seen your feedback, we'll put it that way, and you know, we've been, you know, aware of the news and what people have said, and I think Bertie Ahern, I personally don't think he will go for it. I think he knows that if he goes for it, you know, again, he's probably better off, kind of like Jerry Adams in that way. Like, if he goes for it, people bring up IRA stuff. Like, it's just, yeah, you know, he's probably just better off maybe staying in retirement.
The ship has sailed, kind of, you know, just let exactly, the next generation kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, I don't think there'd be much graph for it, being frank. But Mary Hanafin, that's a name, as Obi-Wan Kenobi said, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. Mary Hanafin, yeah, former minister in Bertie's governments, and Brian Cowen's been off the scene quite a while. Not someone I was expecting. Kind of classic Fianna Fáil, kind of, her father was a Fianna Fáil TD and I think minister as well. But no, look, to be honest, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think Fianna Fáil will nominate anyone. I think Micheál Martin seems to be heading that way. He doesn't seem very, like, he doesn't seem like he's going to push anybody. I just, like we said, I don't think they have much talent. I mean, also, like, as I said, Fianna Fáil, the last candidate they nominated was Mary McAleese, 1997. She self-nominated for re-election in 2004. 2011, Fianna Fáil was a very dirty word in this country, and they didn't nominate anyone. And as you've indicated, it was Sean Gallagher being in any way associated with Fianna Fáil in 2011 that kind of derailed him from certain victory. They didn't go for anyone in 2018 because Michael D was just far too popular and everyone knew he was going to win a landslide. So for them to not run a candidate again, it would be big, because this was Fianna Fáil's office. Fianna Fáil cleaned up the presidency every year from 1938 to 1990. There was no candidate who ever won the Áras until that time who did not have the backing of Fianna Fáil. Mary Robinson in 1990 changed that. So this is their job, really. And for them to not run anybody, it would kind of be an indication of weakness. But I think the realpolitik is that, you know, they've no one to run. Fine Gael have the stronger candidate in Mairead McGuinness, and they probably won't say anything. You won't have Fianna Fáil being like, oh, vote for Fine Gael. But I think the implicit message will be, vote for the coalition candidate. So I don't think she'll be a formal coalition candidate, but I think de facto a coalition candidate. That's my view anyway.
Yeah, so it'll kind of be something like a left versus coalition kind of election. We have the two front runners, whether it be the left, could be Mary Lou, or it could be Catherine Connolly, because Mary Lou hasn't announced her candidacy yet. And it's actually surprising, because last election and the past couple of elections, we've actually had a lot of candidates running, you know, and there's been a lot more names that were thrown around over the past couple of months that have kind of gone quiet, like Mike Ryan. You know, he was the deputy director of the WHO, former anyways, but he basically a couple of months ago, there was news that he was getting approached by a couple of parties to potentially be a candidate. You know, that hasn't been the case, and well, not that I know anyways. I haven't heard anything since, you know. And of course there's been other celebrity candidates, as you mentioned, Charlotte Burns. There was Joe Brolly's name thrown in there, but
Tommy
could we
Tiernan.
see another Tommy Tiernan? Yeah, you know,
Vincent
like,
O'Toole, yeah.
I think personally we need a Navan president. Well, Navan based anyways, but sure, that's just me. But what do you think? Like, do
Maybe
you
when you
think
grow
we're
up,
going
you can
to
go
see?
for it.
Yeah, I'm not long enough in the toot yet. I still have a few years to go. But do you think that there's going to be another big name? Like, do you think we're going to get the likes of a Conor McGregor putting his name onto the ballot paper? Or do you think this is kind of it? Are we kind of seeing the main candidates here.
I think I think the way it's going to shape up is, again, you're correct that up until 1997, that was the first time you had Dana Rosemary Scallon get on the ballot, and she was the first candidate to ever get nominated by the councils. Up until then, it was only Oireachtas parties, and it was usually only two, maybe three. Say there was three candidates in 1990, all nominated by parties. And I think 97 started this trend. Then yeah, 2011, I think we had 7 candidates, if I'm not mistaken. Most of them were independents gone through the councils. I think we had 5 last time. Independents through the councils. So the councils have been kind of flexing that power in recent elections. That was given to them in the Constitution in 1937, but it's only recently they've exercised it. But again, it kind of... Now, look, I love it. I loved all the characters going for it. I thought it was great fun. You know, I know a lot of people were kind of saying, oh, this devalues the process. You know, we have, you know, not serious, credible candidates going up for election. I mean, which is kind of an anti-democratic argument, if you ask me. I think everyone's entitled to seek a nomination if you're eligible. But yeah, I'm thinking now we have Fine Gael and we've a strong left independent in Catherine Connolly. I predict Mary Lou McDonald will get the Sinn Féin nomination, and they will want someone up because they need something. You know, they've underperformed in general elections. They're knocking on the door, but they're not just getting there. They need something to boost the morale. Get Mary Lou into the Áras, probably get Pearse Doherty into the party leadership. That'll refresh them, you know. So yeah, I can see all them. Other than that, like, are we going to get, like, Conor McGregor wants to go for it. We know it. I've watched his Tucker Carlson interview. He's not a great public intellectual, put it that way. But will he get nominated? No one in the Oireachtas will. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Let me ask you a question here. What percentage chance do you give Conor McGregor of getting his name onto the ballot sheet?
Onto the ballot sheet?
Yeah, just the ballot sheet.
0.5.
0.5? Where's the 0.5 coming from?
He is toxic. If he had gone the last election cycle, would have been alright, you know. Just I think the only, you know, there was nothing bad in the news about him then. It was just he was kind of sailing high, and was that the year he lost to Khabib, if I'm not mistaken? Like he was cruising high, like, you know, and I think there was a lot of pride for him. And then he just kind of, like, you know, if I keep quoting films, you know, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I think it's just been bad ever since then. And, you know, I won't mention it in detail, but, you know, we had his court case recently, his civil case, like, just dreadful, horrible stuff, you know. And I think there's not a great appetite for him. And as I said, he's been on Tucker Carlson. I don't know whether you watched the whole thing. I did. It's rather bizarre, I must say. He has a very American view of the system, which just doesn't fit. And I cannot see, because the councils, there's the parties, the Fianna Fáils, the Fine Gaels, Sinn Féin. So none of them are going to back him, you know. And if you take the three of them out of the equation, do any of the councils have majorities without them three parties? I don't think so. So no, I can't see him getting any of the councils to back him. He won't get any TDs. He won't get any senators, because if they do, that'll just... Can you imagine, I'm going to endorse Conor McGregor for president? That's just, like, what TD or senator is going to want that publicity?
Political suicide, yeah.
A 10-foot barge pole, like, honestly. No, he's out. He won't be on. No way. There is talk now. I don't know what you think about this. There is talk about an Ain 2 candidate. What do you think of that?
I saw that in the news. I saw that the Ain 2 were potentially talking with other senators and independent TDs about backing a candidate themselves. But, you know, we're talking about a Navan-based president here. Peadar Tobin could be that Navan-based president. You know, we're talking about Tommy Tiernan's and Pierce Brosnan's. Apologies, but you know, it could be Peadar Tobin. You know, Pierce Brosnan's. No, born and raised in Navan. He's not drawed anyways. But yeah, so you know what, we're just gonna have to wait and see, because it's just one of them things, you know. And if Peadar wants to go for it, I actually think he could get the council nominations, you know, because he's a well-respected representative. You know, he had a very respectable vote in the European elections, and he has a couple of councillors around the place, you know. He has a TD in Mayo as well, and a senator in Cavan, and he's front and center of the news constantly, and he'd be someone I'd actually love to get on an interview on this podcast, because he's one of the most vocal opposition leaders that there is, for someone who who literally only has 2 TDs in his party, so if he goes for, I think he would have no issue in getting the nomination personally, but that's something I don't know what his desires are for presidency, but it would be interesting to see some other independent kind of a candidate run independent / smaller party like Aontú. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, again, they'll have to pull in somebody. I'm fairly sure, I don't know whether Patrick Devane has reeled himself in or out running himself, but like within the party himself, like he's the only one who could be a credible candidate, and like he has that high profile. As you said, he ran in the European election there last year. He pulled in a decent enough vote. Aontú seems to be a kind of a rising brand as well. Like I know they've only 2 TDs, so you could argue they did underperform on the day. They probably they could have let maybe 1 or 2 out on the pitch, but they are kind of a rising brand, and it seems very quite clever as well, in the sense that they've stopped emphasising abortion, which again, that's why the party split from Sinn Féin in the first place, was that Patrick Devane was very committed anti-abortion, pro-life, and Sinn Féin were moving in the opposite direction, and so he lost the whip, like Carol Nolan as well, and he set up a party like that. That was the that was the reason why they started. But I feel like as time's gone on, he's probably realised abortion is not really a vote winner anymore, so he has toned that down, and now it's a bit more about cost of living, a little bit more about immigration, that kind of stuff. It's a little like I would classify it like it's a little bit of populism, but again, that's what gets you votes. But it's like, can you get anyone who could run under his brand to win the Irish? I don't know.
Yeah, like he's kind of like that common sense candidate, that's the kind of the campaign that he might run. And then a final name I might throw at you then, like let's say if it's not going to be Peadar Tobin, there's one more big name in Michael Healy-Rae. There's nobody really representing that south of Ireland, and as well as that, we talk about people with huge brands and names. Michael Healy-Rae is probably in the top 5 most well-known elected representatives of the 21st century. He is Mr. Kerry. He is like that kind of he has that media attention. He has those controversial moments where he says something and the press go crazy. Anything that's Michael Healy-Rae, it kind of blows up. So could he be a likeable character that people might want to vote for, or could you see him putting his name forward?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you had said that to me a couple of months ago before the formation of this government, I mean, maybe. But like, he has a junior ministry now in the Department of Agriculture, which I think he's very happy with. I was surprised, to be honest. I always classified the Healy-Rae as the kind of people who were more happy just kind of representing the constituency, and like I was a bit surprised that they were actually going to go into government. Like I know his late father, Jackie Healy-Rae, supported 2 of Bertie Ahern's governments actually in 97 and 2007, but again from the opposition benches, like Confidence and Supply, like I'll vote with you on issues that matter if I get investment for my constituency. But I never saw him as the kind. I always saw him kind of continuing on that tradition. So I was a bit surprised when both himself and Danny decided to support the new government, and for Michael's case actually partaking in the government. So I don't know, I wouldn't, because he now has that kind of junior ministry now, I'd say there's no incentive really for him to move on. But yeah, like he has a huge big name there, and like as you said, like he's tapping into that. Yeah, you tapped into that about that geographic thing. I think it is a big thing of like, there's no one at the minute who's from that part, like Munster. Say like last time you had Peter Casey, who by the way I think he still wants to go again. I don't see it, but he's up in Donegal. Well, I think he's a Derry man, but like he was pulling votes up in Donegal, and then Martin McGuinness was pulling votes in Donegal time before that as well, the late Martin McGuinness. So yeah, so that can work as well, of like, is there anyone going to come from the extremities, from the southwest or the northwest, or that aren't being targeted by the current candidates? But no, I don't see Michael Healy-Rae myself.
Yeah, and the candidate selection or, parties or individuals who are going to run for it is going to be something we might not see for another month. So, until then, we're going to have our ears pricked and we'll be ready for all eventualities. So, from myself and Ian, I'd like to thank you for listening to the podcast again if you made it this far, and make sure to like and subscribe to the videos, and we'll keep you updated in the future. Thank you. That's grand.